Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Bull. So this week's case, the team is taking on Major League Gaming. Essentially, there's a team, in particular, one of its players named Jace. He's like one of the best, top players around in the league. In particular, Titanfall 2, which I got excited. I was like looking, I was like, because it's just, I don't know why I get a little giddy anytime I see situations like this where you see video games, especially if it's something I recognize. I mean, granted, it's Titanfall 2, so it's like you can't help but kind of recognize it. But at the same time, it's also like, I mean, granted, sales wise, it's not like it's widespread, so it's kind of interesting for it to be mainstream. But at the same time, it's like, I mean, it's not like I'm big into the MLG circuit to really know what's, because it's not necessarily how popular, well, it kind of plays a role. I'm not about to go into it. I'm not about to geek out right at the beginning of this episode by going all extensive like that. So let's move past that. Essentially, Jace is being accused of he threw the game, which there's a lot of things. It's just the way he was playing and stuff like that he would through the game. But you talk to everyone who knows Jace and people on the team are like, no, there's no way you do it. He's too competitive, even with the situation with Bull, because he even talks about the conversation later on that basically they kept playing digital golf over and over again just till Jace could get a chance to win, but because every other time it seemed like Bull was winning or whatever. But for Jace, it's just like he just kept going because he needed to win. And it was kind of something that him and Bull kind of bonded over, because he was like, yeah, just as much as I need to win, it seems like you're taking this case because you need to win too, because it's like he was basically saying that winning is like a psychological thing, that for some people winning is a psychological thing, that you just have to win. You're just kind of always on edge if you don't. But it seems that Jace is a bit of a perfectionist, because even the team talks about some of the times when they're running practice drills and stuff like that, he gets super pissed at himself for making any, even the slightest mistake. It's like, no, he's got to be on point, he's got to be perfect and everything. And what I really appreciate about this episode, because it does a very interesting thing, it's like, usually in a situation, even if it's like Bull is at odds with the lawyers, obviously there's most cases he's cool with the lawyer, they work together and everything, but other cases, it's like he's at odds with the lawyer, they kind of go against what he thinks and what he wants to do. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, best get your lawyer out of this situation, let me be there to kind of be the one to kind of help you. But a lot of times, like I said, they work together. In this episode, he's up against Abigail. I forgot her character's name. It's like, I've seen the actress and stuff, more particularly Daredevil. I think her name's Marcy. She's Foggy's ex, but it's kind of on and off thing. But she's kind of very pushy about this is how things are going to work, because she doesn't 100% trust Bull. What she says online, which is, I feel like they threw that line in there just for NCIS. So the fact of the matter is, he's like, what kind of essentially sure thing boss, calling her boss and everything. To me, that just instinctively makes me go, I think they had to add that in there. That seems like a little bit of fanfare, being DiNozzo. I mean, legitimately, that should just be part of Bull's personality, but it seems like that line was just specifically just tailored to the fact that, Michael Weatherly being DiNozzo on NCIS for so long, because that's just, anytime he talked to Gibbs, that's always what he's like, sure thing, boss, so, I don't know. But I like the fact that they kind of had a back and forth situation, even at one point when they're kind of, what is it called? The blind jury selection or something like that. Essentially, everyone kind of writes down their list of who they want. And that basically throughout the, screening process, that basically they decide who they want to mark off. So everyone's kind of got their list already and decided who they're going to strike and everything. And even during that whole explanation, she kept jumping in, and Bull's like, "Okay, oh, dude, don't you? Oh, you want to go ahead and finish?" She's like, "Oh, I'll finish it if you don't want me to. If you really want me to." And it's kind of interesting because you have Jace in the middle between this kind of, on multiple occasions, being like, "Okay, should I just walk out of here?" Because it came down to a situation where Bull is like, "Oh, we should strike this person." Because it's this person is a unpredictable variable, but the other person that's left is someone that will definitely tank the case because he's very poisonous. But Bull's the prosecution will automatically strike him, so all we got to do is go for this other person and it'll work out on benefits. But Abigail wasn't all that keen to listen to Bull, because basically she set up a whole bunch of rules that basically she has the final say so, which is kind of what happened in that situation, that basically he doesn't turn Jace against her. Which kind of happens to a certain degree, because it's Jace is yo, I kind of agree we should go with Bull. So you kind of see that moment of her going ugh. So that was kind of, I mean, it turns out Bull was right, but it was kind of a situation where it seemed like he was being a little, I don't know what the proper word would be, a little catty with her, in the sense of he's oh yeah, she was right. And then even she's wait, what? He's the fact of the matter is striking, basically saying that it wasn't really his place to really tell her that, because it's like, first, it's like, now that that's done, it's done the part of like, gaining her trust. Now that he follows her lead now, like now that she sees like, oh, he was saying to do the right move, because the fact is it ended up playing out that way, that basically now she can trust him a little bit more going forward. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And I also like going back to it, the ways Jace appreciates the way Bull does things, because he's like, dude, like, because the whole situation was to basically have the prosecution basically do the striking for them. It's like, rather than wasting their strikes on people, they make people seem unappealing so that they will want to strike them, even though it would be someone that be in their, like, it'd be their advantage to have that person. But it's like, have them waste their strike on this person, or at the very least think they're not like, oh, this person is more particular on our side, with the questions they were asking, when it was like, oh, really, this person would fit more so on bullying them side. Basically, kind of play mind games. And even Jason's like, dude, you're so diabolical. Whereas Grant kind of comes back to bite him in the ass a little bit later on in the episode, because he gets Yuna to lie to him. Because it seems like Yuna has feelings for him. I mean, granted, will something come of that? I kind of hope so later on. I hope it's not a situation where it's just like, oh, unrequited feelings. But it seems like, because especially when she saw Jace kissing his girlfriend earlier in an episode and everything, you see like a little look in her eyes, like, oh, she's kind of a little saddened by it. But I like to think maybe at the end of the episode, when it's all said and done, they get together, just because his girlfriend's out of the way, because she dumps him, because it's like, oh, why would she want to be with a loser? Which is sad that, it takes you being a quote-unquote winner or being something special for someone to love you. Someone should love you through your faults and all, be there for the highs and the lows. And the fact of the matter is, she didn't want to be there with you during the lows. Kind of sucks. The moment the lawyer's around, she's like, I don't want to be around here with the lawyers. It's like, you are just a sucky girlfriend. It's like, I mean, it also makes you wonder, how does she feel when it's all said and done? Obviously, spoiler, like, you watch the episodes, you already know, but they win at the end of it. Well, not necessarily win, but he gets back part of the team and everything. So it's kind of like, I don't know, man. Like, how would she feel after? Like, oh, I bet she feel kind of stupid afterwards. See what happens when you're kind of a gold digger and just kind of a terrible person. Like, life kind of has a way of kind of laughing in your face. It's like, oh, haha, you kind of show. I mean, it's a good thing it happened, because she showed her true colors, made him realize, like, yeah, she wasn't there for me. She was there for all the wrong reasons, because I was this instead of, because if I wasn't this person, if I wasn't Jace, this great MLG player, she wouldn't be with me. So, once again, it has its benefits of things playing out the way they did. But like I said, the point was that Jace had Yuna lying, and also I appreciate her name being Yuna. That is such a cool thing. Like, I've never seen the name Yuna outside of video games, like, except for like Final Fantasy X Yuna, and maybe there's probably some Yunas from anime and manga that I'm just not thinking about. But I wonder how, like, consistent is the name Yuna. I want to know some more about that. Like, is that the reason why she chose it for video game or anime or whatever case? Like, nerdy reasons. But it's like, even if it's just kind of like, oh no, that's like a legit name, which I did. If it is, I didn't know that. Nevertheless, it's it's a pretty name. I guess because I always associate it with Final Fantasy X and 2. But at the same time, it just by itself is a very pretty name, because, Y names, I don't think there's a lot of them. I mean, at the point of someone saying like, oh no, there's like a crap ton of Y names, but I don't know that many, and so it just kind of, it's special in my head because of that. I mean, the sad truth we ended up finding out is that Jace isn't the one that actually threw the game, obviously, because the Bull was like, at first he was kind of like, oh yeah, like, at first he was sitting down, before he sat down, he was wondering if that was the case, but then the way Jace reacted to finding out, because basically someone put down like a $500,000 bet, they hid it behind some shell corporations or stuff like that. Basically, the odds were like 25-1, basically meaning the payout for it would be like 12.5 mil, and that's crazy. That was kind of something that came up in the episode too, about the whole situation. The fact is that, like, there was even a lady up there, Connie, was basically bringing up kind of the fact of the matter is, it's like, they get paid a lot of money just to play video games. For one, I'm not going to judge anyone for like how much money. It's like, oh, you don't deserve it. It's like, dude, you put in the time and the effort, no matter what the case may be, and you make a good enough amount of money, you make a crap ton of money. It's like, dude, I'm not going to hate your hustle. You do you. Like, you're growing up in an environment where it allows you to do what you're doing, like to have fun and be in these competitions and stuff, to live a life like that. Like, you could call it whatever you want, lucky, fortunate. I'm sure all the stars had to align for certain situations. It's like you had to but that doesn't mean you didn't have to put in the time and the effort, because for Jace, he's been playing video games since he was 4 years old, so it kind of worked out that way for him. And it's like, it's kind of like the right direction to go. It's kind of the same mentality, kind of bring it a little realism, and it's kind of like almost fourth wall breaking in the way I do this, but the whole YouTube situation. Plenty of people is like, I don't get Let's Plays. I appreciate Let's Plays. I watch Let's Plays because they're very entertaining, and especially when you add in someone's personality, there's a lot more, there's layers to it. It's like, oh, who watches people play video games? I know there's a lot of people who have that mentality. I'm not going to blame you for thinking that. It's kind of a very older person mentality. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people within this generation or even younger than me who think that same way, but there's also, I feel like a majority of people are like, no, they're growing up around that. It's like, if you didn't grow up around it, then obviously it's not really going to click with you. Take Connie, for example. She even got pissed finding out about how much Jace ended up making, because Jace, like, his contract was originally for like $500,000 or something like that, but then with all the expenses and everything, he makes about $73,000. I was like, dude, that's a heavy ass cut, dude. Holy crap, that is heavy. You make less than a fifth of the money you bring in. I was like, how the hell is that fair? That sucks, dude. But nevertheless. But going back to it, we ended up finding the real reason behind Jace's whole situation is, sadly, he has Parkinson's. Like, obviously, it was a neurological thing, and it's just like, that's what was going on. Because they brought up the fact is that in that one game, Jace made about 5 mistakes, and he's made 5 mistakes all over his entire career. So for him to make that same amount in this one game just means so much. So it really sucks because, for Jace, it hits him hard because it's like, yeah, he could keep playing the game and everything, but slowly but surely, eventually, it'll kind of take its toll on him. Yes, there's medications and treatments to kind of help with it, but at the same time, it's kind of the stigma behind it, because he will always be looked at differently the moment people find out about his Parkinson's situation, because it's like, oh yeah, that's Jace the player who has Parkinson's. Like, people will almost pity him. They won't really show him the respect. They won't really look at him as a gamer. Hence why they did the whole situation of like, yo, basically reach a new settlement that basically, with his manager Vince, that basically gets back on the team and everything, and he doesn't have to basically announce his condition, because, like I said, he doesn't want to be looked at that dip. He wants to just be able to play the game for as long as possible, and obviously, because there's still different avenues he could go down eventually. Even if things get bad, he could also be in a very mentoring, he could eventually take a situation like Vince and eventually become a manager to help future gamers kind of treat them right, because the whole situation is about helping him as well as other players get paid equally as managers. Like, that's kind of the deal him and Vince kind of Vince and Bull came down to at the end of it all, was that. I do love that when it comes to this whole gaming situation, that Benny was the one that was kind of the most bleh about it, because he's like, oh yeah, I died. He's like, don't worry, you're going to respawn in a second. He's like, respawn. He's like, oh, I died again. Great game, just great. Just he's kind of I guess the word would be fuddy-duddy about the whole situation. He's just one of those people. Even the lady, what's her name, I can't remember, the older lady, that she was still pissed about it. Like, in the way Bull was reading her, it was like she still had a problem with the whole him making 73,000. It was like, oh, he still makes more than me, just because she has that mentality. Like I said, older person mentality of like, oh, it's stupid that you get paid a crap ton of money just to play video games, like blah 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 blah. But then things kind of changed when they got Vince to kind of reveal the fact is he pulls out his key and he has a rabbit's foot on it, and apparently the lady had Connie, she had 2 rabbits, so it kind of hit her. She was like, no, I'm on Jace's side now. So that was kind of interesting. But it was also interesting seeing Chunk play that side of it, because it's like, Chunk plays sports and everything, but he doesn't look down upon these gamers. He looks at them as people like, oh, no, they're really into this game. They enjoy it. They're sportsmen themselves. He never looked down upon them. So that was kind of a nice seeing that side of Chunk, Chunk is a very, even dude of being it's not like we've seen anyone he looks down or disrespects, Like I said, there's plenty of people who look at this whole gaming situation and be like, that's not really a sport. But he doesn't look it down upon it because he thinks, oh, it's such good. There's a sportsmanship aspect to it. There's a competition aspect to it. A lot of people train and put a lot of hard work into it. And, that's basically what a sport is. And so, as long, you might not be as physically exerting yourself like you would any other sport, doing real work like you would during a sports. I'm sure some people would phrase it like that, but you're still exerting yourself, because to do what they're doing takes a lot of patience, time, eye-hand coordination, having very good skills and reflexes, knowing when to make going back to it, patience, to know when to strike and when to hold, so. But also, the fact is that Cable's really good at the game, but she chooses not to play it because of the fact is of a past situation, because she sees how addicting games can be. Because apparently she had a ex who, his name's Wes, he was a game developer, but he kind of got swept into the game, he kind of eats, sleep, and work on a game, and that's it. There was kind of no time for her. It's kind of why they broke up and everything. Which she kind of goes to him for help with this whole situation. He kind of talks about the fact is that she asks us, how long did it take for you to notice I was gone? And he's like, he noticed pretty quickly, because he was like, that's kind of around the time he quit playing games, because, I mean, he enjoys games and everything, but it's kind of a situation where it's like, reality kind of smacked him a little bit to be like, oh yeah, he still finds himself drawn to the games, but probably not to the extent that he was before, because, it may put things in perspective, Cable leaving and everything. Which, side note, it's literally been in the back of my mind since I saw it at the end of the episode. It's been on my mind the entire time of recording. I have to point out the fact is, Cable was waiting for him at the date and everything. And I happened to notice that she was reading something. I was like, wait, that art style. I literally rewound the TV. I was like, is that a manga she's reading? Literally paused. I was like, that slightly looks familiar. And I'm looking at the title, like, The Devil. I was like, wait a minute. This isn't, happened to get up close to the TV, and it's The Devil is a part-time worker. I think it's the title of the manga. It's a manga / anime series I've come across before. It's something I've been meaning to check out. I haven't checked out, or nevertheless, but it still got me. It was like, Cable, oh my god, marry me. Like, please marry me. You're into video games. Obviously, you're a hacker, so like, and very nerdy. And it's just like, and you're reading a manga too. It's like, marry me, please. Yes, I know this is all for the sake of the character. I mean, you never know with situations like this, because the fact is that they do have a situation where some things are brought to a character because of the actors like that. So for all we know, the actress who plays Cable could really be into video games and really into manga, or maybe not. Maybe that's just something they felt like there to kind of establish a little bit of her character, kind of show you who she is, because add a little more to her personality. It's like, oh yeah, Cable's a bit of a nerd. And yes, I do realize it's very shallow of me to be like, to want to marry someone on such a shallow thing. It's just like, oh my gosh, we have these things in common, you like video games and all. Like, I mean, granted, I'm more of a JRPG type of dude, but that's kind of me splitting hairs and why I really get into that. But the fact of the matter is, just that manga thing got me. That's all I need. I'm a simple man. And it's just like that just blew my mind right there. Like I said, I'm halfway joking about the whole like, oh, marry me immediately, but there's also the side of half of me that is like serious about like, oh no, marry me. I did love the situation, like, because basically she gave Wes kind of a situation. It's like, oh, meet me at a cafe at 2 p.m. It's like, oh yeah, that's around the same time as a competition, isn't it? She's like, yeah, that's kind of the point. And he ended up showing up, and they kiss and everything. So whether that's going to be a full thing going forward, well, just kind of the way. We still don't even know how things are working between Marissa and her ex-husband, whether things are kind of working out or not. But still, if I don't know, I want to bring up in this episode is the situation with Abigail and Bull, because basically, like I said, like even with everything that was going on between them, it's a little bit flirtatious. It's almost like a little game of cat and mouse, almost. Like, it almost seemed like on certain levels, almost like Bull like almost antagonizing her a bit just to see how she'll strike back at him, and he like kind of taking those blows so he could kind of strike back in his own way. Even at one point, he's like, oh, there's a place right across the street we can go to. And she's like, I don't date employees. Then the conversation comes back later on. He's like, oh, I thought there was kind of something there, or was I wrong? And she's like, well, let me just put it this way. You're no longer an employee. So I was like, ooh, so does it mean Bull? Obviously, it's kind of a situation where like, hey, let's test the waters. We don't have to go too deep in this, It could just be kind of as something else I talked about tonight, just be a chill thing. So overall, just a very good episode. That was just kind of a fun, interesting episode. I'm not necessarily fun for every level, but it's just kind of an interesting episode. Really good episode. Just shut up, Michael. Just shut up. Anyway, till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.